Have you ever felt so trapped in a relationship that you couldn't breathe, or so heartbroken that you could barely stand? This is the story of one woman who faced betrayal in the darkest of hours while pregnant with her first child, and found herself forced to walk away from the glamorous life she once knew. Yet, in a stunning twist of fate, she rose from the ashes and built a fortune even more immense than her millionaire ex-husband's. Prepare to be swept into a tale of heartbreak, triumph, and spectacular revenge as we delve into one of the most dramatic turnarounds you'll ever witness. Elena Roswell stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan penthouse, gazing down at the city she once thought she owned. Her heart hammered inside her chest, echoing with equal parts fear and heartbreak. It had been a magnificent life, at least on the surface. She had been married to Desmond Roswell, a high-profile entrepreneur known for his lavish spending and uncanny ability to charm any room he entered. Their union had garnered mentions in magazines like Forbes and Vogue, and their faces had graced countless social events. Even her mother had once said, "Eleanor, you found your real life, Prince Charming." But beneath the polished exterior, something was cracking. An unease had shadowed Elena's days, until a series of events laid bare the truth. Desmond was not the man she thought he was. As her mind raced, she recalled the early days of their marriage, glittering galas, weekend getaways to the French Riviera, and nights out with celebrities. The glitz hid a sinister undercurrent that only revealed itself fully when her world came crashing down. That night, as the moonlight poured into the penthouse, she felt both a pang of nostalgia for what once was and a desperate need to escape. Because in that moment, Elena carried not just her own shattered dreams, but a secret she was terrified to reveal. She was pregnant. Elena first realized Desmond's troubling side when she overheard him speaking in hushed, urgent tones to a woman on the phone. At first, she chalked it up to business dealings. Desmond was known for closing high-stakes deals at odd hours. Yet, as days turned to weeks, the emotional distance between them grew until Elena felt like she was living with a stranger. Late nights without explanation, cryptic text messages, and an explosive temper that would erupt over the smallest inconveniences, these hints formed a disturbing picture. Then came the money secrets. Statements from obscure offshore accounts slipped out of Desmond's desk. Prolonged business trips seemed suspicious, especially when Elena discovered receipts for five-star restaurants and brand-name gifts not addressed to her. The tension reached a peak on the night of Desmond's birthday gala at the Plaza Hotel. Elena had been glowing in a bespoke emerald gown, yet she couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling tightening around her like a vise. An acquaintance let slip that they had seen Desmond entering an upscale lounge with another woman earlier in the week. The after-party chatter insinuated that he'd been spotted flirting with multiple women. She cornered him that night, eyes full of tears, demanding honesty. It was then Desmond spat out words she never dreamed he would say. "I never wanted to be tied down so young." Maybe this was all a mistake. In that single moment, the shimmering fairy tale they had built together vanished like smoke in the wind. In the aftermath, Elena found herself isolating in a quiet corner of the penthouse cold marble floors, reflecting her tear-stained face. Desmond's words had cut through her illusions, and she realized her marriage was on shaky ground. Yet, ironically, that same week, she discovered she was pregnant. Unsure how Desmond would react, she kept the news to herself at first. Over the course of a few nights, Elena mulled over her next move. Should she tell him? Would it repair the relationship, or only tighten a noose around their toxic dynamic? Fear mingled with hope. Some part of her believed that maybe, just maybe, a child could remind Desmond of the love they once shared. But each time she tried to share her secret, something new about his behavior would give her pause. She stumbled upon more incriminating evidence, secret texts, suspicious credit card charges, unexplained receipts from flower shops, not for her. The heartbreak burned through her chest like acid, but also gave her clarity. If the father of her child was someone she couldn't trust, staying might do more harm than good. And so, pregnant, anxious, and alone, Elena decided to do the unthinkable. She would leave. She would walk out of this opulent life she had helped build, the life that had dazzled her senses yet hollowed her heart. Her only companion was the flutter she felt in her womb, an unspoken vow that she would protect this child at all costs. On a bitterly cold morning, Elena packed the essentials, some clothes, documents, and a few sentimental photographs, careful to avoid suspicion. She was afraid that confronting Desmond about his affairs or his finances might incite his wrath. By then, his temper had become a looming shadow over their once picture-perfect home. Desmond, preoccupied with yet another urgent conference call, barely lifted his eyes from his phone when Elena walked downstairs with a suitcase. "I'm going to visit my parents," she lied, pressing her lips tight to keep her tears in check. He didn't question her further, after all. He had grown used to being entirely self-involved. She remembered how he used to be the one to take her to the airport, hold her hand, and beg her not to leave for too long. Now, he was barely aware of her presence. It was a final sign that this marriage was dead. When she stepped into the elevator and felt it slide downward, a swirl of emotions overwhelmed her. Fear, heartbreak, and a strange flicker of relief. She was freeing herself from a gilded cage. The instant the elevator doors opened to the bustling lobby, she drew in a shaky breath. Each step she took away from that penthouse was a step towards reclaiming her own life, and that of her unborn child. Elena's first refuge was a small, modest hotel in the outskirts of Manhattan. She checked in under her maiden name, Elena Donovan, wanting no risk that Desmond or his staff would track her down. The place was a stark contrast from the grandeur she was used to. Her room contained a single bed, a shaky wooden chair, and a peeling wallpaper that smelled faintly of old cigarette smoke. She felt as though she had stepped from a dream into a harsh reality. Gone were the doorman, the plush furniture, the house staff. Gone, too, was the sense of security, false though it may have been. That night, the baby kicked for the first time. It was the strangest sensation, equal parts exhilarating and terrifying. It reminded her that she needed to figure out how to survive, and quickly. Without Desmond's wealth, her financial footing was uncertain. She had studied marketing at the University of Pennsylvania, but had never pursued a long-term career, content to let Desmond's success fund their life. Now, she decided, she had to stand on her own. She made phone calls to her parents in upstate New York, but with her father's chronic illness, they were already stretched thin. She didn't want to burden them. Instead, she made up an excuse, something about needing a short break away from the city, assuring them she was safe. The truth of her heartbreak and pregnancy remained hers alone, sealed in tears every night as she wondered what her next step would be. Fate sometimes has a strange way of stepping in when we need it most. One sunny afternoon, Elena sat in a small cafe reading the classifieds, her eyes scanning for jobs that matched her limited experience. She had done some philanthropic event coordination for Desmond's company, but most of it was volunteer-based, or so it said on paper. Potential employers might not see her so-called glamorous socialite background as a legitimate qualification. That was when she noticed a familiar face from her days in Manhattan's high society, Patricia Sullivan, the founder of a well-known fashion PR firm. Patricia had once been a friend of a friend, someone Elena would share small talk with at cocktail parties or philanthropic events. Though they weren't close, Patricia recognized Elena immediately and approached with a warm smile that gave Elena hope. Over a quick lunch, Elena confided that she had left Desmond, though she didn't delve into the specifics of infidelity or her pregnancy. Patricia, known for her no-nonsense approach to life, seemed to pick up on the heartbreak Elena tried to mask. She asked pointed questions about Elena's skill set, particularly how she had organized charity balls, handled media, and developed sponsorship proposals. Elena, momentarily forgetting her sorrows, lit up as she described what she had once accomplished for Desmond's philanthropic efforts. Patricia's eyes gleamed with interest. "I'm opening a new subsidiary in Los Angeles," she revealed. "We need someone who has an eye for brand relationships and event management. Think you could handle that?" It felt like a lifeline. Elena's breath caught in her throat. "I do," she replied softly, tears threatening to spill. For the first time since leaving the penthouse, she felt a true sense of possibility. Patricia offered her a mid-level position that would grow with her performance, an opportunity to climb out of the desperation that had mired her since she fled. Elena decided to accept Patricia's offer, and within a month she had relocated to Los Angeles. She sublet a small apartment in Santa Monica, far from the judgmental stares of New York's elite. Each day she woke up to the distant hum of waves crashing along the coast, a stark contrast to the sirens and horns of Manhattan's streets. This new environment offered something she desperately needed: anonymity. No more whispers behind her back, no more references to Desmond Roswell's wife, no more paparazzi hoping to snap a scandalous photo. She could start fresh, even if she was nearly 6 months pregnant. Balancing a new job with a pregnancy proved daunting. She hid her growing belly under loose blouses and blazer jackets, not wanting to risk her newly found employment before she had a chance to prove herself. At work, she tackled every project Patricia threw her way, networking with big brands, coordinating press events, and negotiating sponsorship deals. And in the evenings, she navigated prenatal appointments and baby preparations. Sometimes she felt an overwhelming ache for the father of her child, wondering if she should tell him. But each memory of his betrayal reminded her that their relationship had been a house of cards. Love cannot flourish where trust has been shattered. Back in New York, Desmond noticed Elena's absence in small but growing ways. A week after she left, he realized her closet was half empty. He told himself she was visiting her parents, that she'd return. But as the days turned into weeks, her calls never came. He found a note she left behind, deliberately vague. "I need time away. Don't follow me." Frustration simmered within Desmond, but his ego kept him from searching earnestly. He told himself she'd come crawling back once she realized her lifestyle was unsustainable without him. During that time, rumors circulated. Some of Desmond's acquaintances found it peculiar that Elena vanished without a trace. Others snickered that she might have found a more exciting life, or that maybe Desmond had driven her away. Secretly, he started to suspect she'd discovered the full extent of his indiscretions, his multiple affairs, and suspicious financial dealings that teetered on the brink of legality. Despite his bravado, Desmond felt a pang of regret. Elena was not like his flings. She was gentle, intelligent, and had once been his reason to dream of a stable home. But rationalization was easier than self-reflection. He drowned his doubts in more lavish parties, more meaningless relationships, and more reckless financial bets that no one dared question, at least not while his fortune appeared robust. What he didn't know was that seeds of financial ruin were silently sprouting beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Elena poured herself into her new career. The drive that once propelled her to plan extravagant charity galas for Desmond's brand now found a new home. She proved invaluable to Patricia's West Coast division, landing big-name clients and orchestrating high-profile events. Word spread fast in the PR world. Elena Donovan was a rising star. Her diligence paid off financially too. After 6 months in the role, she had saved enough to move into a slightly larger apartment in a safer neighborhood. The baby's room, a tiny corner space she lovingly painted a soft lavender, became her sanctuary. There, she would imagine the future, free from all the toxic threads tying her to Desmond. As her belly swelled, she faced the inevitable questions from co-workers. Some asked politely, "Are you expecting?" Others glanced with a mixture of curiosity and pity, wondering if there was a partner in the picture. To keep things professional, Elena gave vague responses. "It's a private situation, but I'm excited." Patricia, less naive than the rest, quietly offered her support. If Elena felt any discomfort or needed time, Patricia assured her the company would accommodate. She never pried into Elena's past, for which Elena was profoundly grateful. In early spring, Elena gave birth to a baby boy she named Lucas. The labor was long and grueling, but the moment she held Lucas in her arms, tears of relief and love washed over her. For the first time in many months, she felt an unshakable sense of purpose. Here was a tiny human who depended on her for everything, who would one day ask why he didn't have a father around, who would look to her for guidance and security. With no family nearby, Elena navigated postpartum challenges on her own: sleep deprivation, newborn care, medical bills. Patricia allowed her to work from home part-time, a blessing that helped her juggle motherhood with her burgeoning career. Still, each time she opened a hospital bill, she felt a twinge of anger. Desmond, the child's father, should be helping with these expenses. Yet, pride and a desire to protect Lucas from Desmond's toxic influence kept her from making any move to contact him. She focused instead on forging ahead. Breastfeeding in the early hours of the morning, answering urgent emails with one hand while cradling Lucas in the other. Elena's life was a whirlwind, but it was hers, free of pretense and heartbreak. At night, when Lucas slept, she cried softly from exhaustion and emotional release, but never from regret. Elena's talent for forging partnerships quickly elevated her within Patricia's organization. She developed innovative marketing campaigns for high-end clients, orchestrating brand collaborations that were splashed across fashion magazines and TV segments. As Patricia's business thrived, Elena received raises and bonuses that allowed her to finally relax, financially speaking. A year after Lucas's birth, Elena moved into a cozy 2-bedroom condo overlooking a tree-lined street in Los Feliz. It wasn't extravagant, but it was comfortable, a far cry from the cramped hotel room where she'd once sought refuge. Balancing single motherhood and a demanding career wasn't easy. There were days she wanted to collapse under the weight of it all, but each time she looked into Lucas's bright eyes, she found the resolve to push forward. She also found subtle ways to invest her growing income. Having learned from her time around Desmond and his circle, she understood the importance of letting money work for her. She read every business and finance book she could find, eventually dabbling in real estate investment. One of her colleagues recommended speaking with a broker to purchase a rental property in a burgeoning neighborhood. At first, she was hesitant. Could she handle the risks as a single mother? But after several months of research and her colleagues' insistence that the market was prime, Elena took the plunge. She managed to secure a small 2-unit property, renting 1 unit out to a young family and eventually turning the second into an Airbnb. Her entrepreneurial spirit, once stifled in her marriage, burned brightly now, propelling her to greater lengths. She discovered she had a knack for real estate, leveraging her marketing savvy to boost rental income and raise property values. Desmond, meanwhile, was having a far different experience. On the surface, His lavish lifestyle continued: private jets, exclusive clubs, expensive gifts for his string of lovers. But behind closed doors, his businesses were failing. Where once he had a golden touch, time and hubris began to strip away his invincibility. A few crucial investments in risky startups tanked, leaving him hemorrhaging money. Lawsuits emerged from disgruntled business partners, and rumors of fraudulent accounting trickled through the corporate grapevine. He found solace in escapism, alcohol, nights at clubs, and new romantic entanglements that only drained more funds. His attorneys advised him to be conservative with his lifestyle, but Desmond refused to listen. It was as if, in losing Elena, he'd also lost the last vestige of responsible anchoring in his life. He missed her, though he rarely admitted it out loud. Her gentle presence, her unwavering support, her knack for smoothing over his professional messes. He had underestimated how invaluable they were. Yet, pride prevented him from reaching out. The cracks in his empire became too large to ignore when one of his major shareholders threatened legal action over misappropriated funds. Desmond scrambled to cover up the shortfalls, shifting money between accounts, forging documents, and calling in favors. Each move only pulled him deeper into the quagmire. By the time a friend warned him that the SEC might get involved, it was too late to reverse the damage. The day Desmond received a subpoena from federal authorities was the day he realized he might lose everything. The fleeting sense of power and control he once enjoyed evaporated under legal scrutiny. Frozen assets, negative media exposure, and a swiftly crumbling reputation followed. The scandal rocked New York's elite circles, where hushed conversations in the corners of charity galas and exclusive dinners turned to speculation about how far Desmond would fall. His so-called friends vanished. His lovers found new, wealthier patrons. Desperate, Desmond tried to leverage the penthouse, only to discover it was tied up in convoluted legal battles. As the walls closed in, he remembered Elena. Was she in contact with the feds? Did she know something that could incriminate him further? Or worse, was she living a better life without him? What Desmond didn't realize was how far Elena had come. She hadn't said a word to the authorities. She wasn't even aware of his legal troubles. Her silence was an act of self-preservation. She had no intention of re-entering the toxic labyrinth of Desmond's life, not even to watch him suffer. She was too busy building a future that sparkled with possibilities, a future that grew brighter day by day. Over the next few years, Elena fully bloomed into a powerhouse of competence and compassion. Patricia's PR firm thrived on Elena's strategic insights and the personal touch she brought to every client relationship. The West Coast office expanded, and soon Elena was promoted to managing director. Her salary soared, and she further diversified her investments, buying a second rental property near downtown La. Lucas, growing into a curious toddler, became the center of her world. She involved him in every part of her daily life, that she could weekend strolls at Santa Monica Pier, playful visits to the office where her colleagues doted on him, and reading bedtime stories about courageous adventurers finding treasure. In her own way, Elena was living a version of that story, uncovering the treasure of personal growth and financial independence that once seemed impossible. The more Elena achieved, the more she reflected on her past. She didn't dwell on it bitterly, but she used it as a catalyst, a reminder that she deserved better than betrayal and half-truths. In quiet moments, she sometimes imagined what might happen if Desmond reappeared. Would she let him see Lucas? Would she demand compensation for the years she'd struggled alone? She had no definitive answer, only a conviction that she'd protect Lucas from anyone who threatened his well-being, even if that person was his father. Late one evening, Elena was working on a major PR campaign for a luxury automotive client when she received a message on LinkedIn. The name made her heart skip. Desmond Roswell. In that moment, it felt like a ghost from the past had materialized, gripping her by the shoulders. She stared at the screen, uncertainty roiling in her stomach. She hadn't heard from him in years. And now, out of nowhere, a LinkedIn message? With trembling fingers, she clicked to open it. The message was brief. Elena, I know it's been a long time, and I understand if you don't want to respond. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. If you're open to it, I'd like to see you. I've changed. Desmond, a torrent of conflicting emotions surged through her. Anger, disbelief, sorrow, curiosity. She had no idea what I've changed could mean. Desmond was the man who had broken her heart, betrayed her trust, and left her to navigate pregnancy alone. She wasn't sure if forgiveness was even possible, and yet part of her wanted closure. She decided to wait before replying. A sleepless night followed, filled with memories of their early love and the pain that ended it. She looked over at Lucas, sleeping peacefully, innocence personified. Did he deserve a chance to know his biological father? Against her better judgment, Elena agreed to a brief public meetup at a cafe in Beverly Hills. She chose a bustling place, wanting witnesses around in case Desmond tried any manipulative tricks. When she arrived, she nearly didn't recognize him. He appeared thinner, his eyes sunken, and the arrogant swagger that once defined him was absent. They sat at a small table, the hum of chatter around them serving as white noise. After an uncomfortable silence, Desmond spoke first. "I want to apologize," he said softly, "for everything I did that hurt you." Eleanor simply nodded, letting him continue. He explained how his empire had collapsed, how he'd faced legal battles, lost money, been abandoned by friends. I ended up in rehab for a while, he admitted, voice wavering. Alcohol and pills. I was running from my own guilt and failures. Elena's initial reaction was a swirl of conflicting feelings, sympathy, distrust, and a flicker of satisfaction that fate had caught up with him. He then asked the question she'd dreaded. Do we have a child? I heard rumors. I need to know. Her throat went dry. Part of her wanted to lie, to deny him a chance at fatherhood. But she wasn't someone who believed in deceit, and Lucas deserved truth. Yes, we do, she responded, voice shaking with emotion. His name is Lucas, and he's 3 years old now. Desmond's eyes brimmed with tears. I'm sorry, he repeated, as if that phrase could patch up years of absence. I know I can't expect anything, but if there's any chance, I'd like to meet him. Over the following weeks, Elena wrestled with the decision to allow Desmond into Lucas's life. She consulted with a therapist, weighed the pros and cons, and considered the potential emotional harm if Desmond disappeared again or fell back into old patterns. Yet, the therapist also pointed out the importance of a child knowing their biological father, provided that father is stable and genuinely repentant. Tentatively, she agreed to a supervised visit at a park. She watched from a distance as Desmond approached the sandbox where Lucas was building a small tower of sand. Desmond knelt, speaking softly to the boy, who was initially shy but soon showed him how to sculpt the sand. Elena witnessed a gentle side of Desmond she hadn't seen in years, no bravado, no grandiosity, just a man in awe of a life he had helped create but never nurtured. After the short visit, Lucas ran back to Elena, excitedly declaring, "Mommy, that man helped me make a sandcastle." Desmond lingered behind, looking both hopeful and broken, as if he recognized the magnitude of what he had missed. As Elena considered letting Desmond inch closer to Lucas's life, new complications emerged. Desmond revealed that he was on the verge of financial ruin. He had sold off most of his assets to pay legal fees and settle lawsuits. The penthouse was gone, and his name was tarnished among serious investors. He was trying to rebuild by working as a consultant, but his reputation was a massive hurdle. To make matters worse, the media sniffed out the story. A tabloid ran an article titled, "Fallen Millionaire Desmond Roswell Reaches Out to Former Wife and Secret Child." Paparazzi began to circle Elena's office, fueling questions among her team and clients. Concerned, Patricia asked, "Is this going to affect our campaigns?" Elena felt her professional life threatened by her personal entanglement. Though Patricia trusted her, the last thing Elena wanted was for her staff or clients to fear negative publicity. She swiftly issued a statement to the press, reaffirming her personal life was private and had no bearing on her professional commitments. Yet, gossip blogs ran wild with speculation, dragging up old photos of Elena and Desmond at lavish galas, contrasting them with images of Desmond's fall from grace. One afternoon, Elena found herself alone in her office, reviewing final details for a celebrity event. The stress of the paparazzi, the re-emergence of Desmond, and the demands of single motherhood were converging in a perfect storm. Her chest felt tight, anxiety gripping her lungs. She excused herself, locked her office door, and tried to practice a breathing exercise. Tears formed at the corners of her eyes. She couldn't help but think, why now? Just when her life was on a steady upward trajectory, managing a division, owning properties, raising Lucas, this ghost from the past, had returned to disrupt everything. Part of her wanted to believe Desmond was sincere in his remorse and simply needed closure or a second chance. Another part of her feared letting him back in would open old wounds and jeopardize the life she'd built. Overwhelmed, she dialed Patricia. "I need a personal day," she managed to say, voice choking up. Patricia, ever supportive, insisted she take whatever time she needed. That day, Elena picked up Lucas early from preschool. They walked through a local park, hand in hand, as she tried to ground herself in the pure joy of being a mother to this resilient, beautiful child. Elena finally sought legal counsel regarding her situation. She met with a family law attorney to understand her options regarding custody, child support, and any potential legal actions Desmond might face. The attorney walked her through the complexities. Since Desmond was the biological father, he did have parental rights unless a court determined otherwise. Child support could be pursued, though with Desmond's financial state in shambles, extracting consistent payments might be futile. Nevertheless, a formal agreement could protect Lucas and define boundaries for Desmond's involvement. Armed with this information, Elena felt a newfound sense of empowerment. She called Desmond and explained that any future visits with Lucas would require a structured, legal framework. She needed to ensure stability for Lucas above all else. Desmond agreed, sounding resigned but willing, a sharp contrast to the entitled attitude he once displayed. Despite the turmoil, Elena's career thrived. She was promoted once again, this time taking on a partial ownership stake in Patricia's company's West Coast division. Patricia, eager to secure the future of the firm, recognized Elena's irreplaceable contribution and rewarded her with equity. The partnership was a game changer, catapulting Elena into a level of financial security she never thought she'd experience on her own. Her real estate ventures also gained momentum. The properties she owned appreciated in value, and she wisely reinvested profits into another multi-unit building. She hired a small team to handle property management, diversifying her income streams. In a few short years, she went from a scared pregnant woman in a cheap hotel to a respected businesswoman with a growing empire. Magazines like Los Angeles Business Journal began to mention her name in articles about rising female entrepreneurs. She was turning heads, not for whom she was married to, but for who she had become. Yet, she remained humble. She knew too well how quickly life could pull the rug out from under someone. So she saved, invested, and planned carefully. Her focus was always Lucas, ensuring he had a stable home, a good education, and a mother who could be fully present. She never wanted him to feel the same sense of broken trust she had experienced in her marriage. Meanwhile, Desmond continued his uphill battle to regain some semblance of stability. He secured smaller consultancy projects, primarily from overseas clients who were less familiar with his tarnished reputation. It didn't pay much, but it kept him afloat. The settlement he reached with federal authorities prevented him from holding certain executive positions for a period of time, limiting his options. Though he struggled financially, he began to prioritize therapy and rebuilding his personal life in a healthier way. He attended addiction recovery meetings and participated in community service. Each month, he visited Lucas under the arrangement Elena set, supervised at first, and eventually at Elena's condo when she felt comfortable enough. During these visits, Desmond demonstrated patience and genuine warmth toward his son. Elena watched him carefully. She saw real remorse in his eyes, a marked difference from the condescending manner he once wielded like a sword. Still, deep wounds don't heal overnight. Trust is not easily rebuilt, and the presence of guilt and regret cannot undo years of pain. However, for Lucas's sake, Elena permitted small steps forward. One day, Elena's parents came to visit from upstate New York. They had never liked Desmond much, but they adored their grandson. While they spent time at Elena's condo, Desmond arrived for his scheduled visit with Lucas. Tension filled the room. Elena's father, still frail but fiercely protective, stared daggers at Desmond, as if to say, "How dare you show your face after abandoning our daughter?" Lucas, sensing the tension, clung to his mother. In that awkward silence, Desmond swallowed hard and approached Elena's parents. He apologized for his past behavior and expressed gratitude that they had taken care of Elena in her times of need. Though their response was lukewarm at best, they did shake his hand. For them, acceptance was out of the question, but politeness for Lucas's sake was non-negotiable. That evening, Elena's mother confronted her in the kitchen. "Are you sure you want him around, Lucas?" she asked. Hushed. Elena understood their concern, but she also recognized Desmond might be on a genuine path to becoming a better father. She simply nodded, explaining that she was proceeding with caution. Her mother sighed, kissed her cheek, and prayed Elena knew what she was doing. As time wore on, Desmond and Elena developed a fragile co-parenting relationship. He would take Lucas to the park or the aquarium on weekends, often supervised by Elena or a trusted nanny. He kept his interactions with Elena cordial, always apologizing when he had to reschedule or run late. He started contributing small amounts toward Lucas's expenses, though it was nowhere near what a man of his former wealth might provide. One weekend, Desmond invited Elena to join him and Lucas at a beachside cafe, hoping to show how far he'd come. They laughed at Lucas's antics, his wide-eyed fascination with seagulls, and the silly names he gave them. For a moment, it felt almost like they were a family again. When Lucas ran off to chase the waves, Desmond turned to Elena. "I'm grateful you've let me back into his life, into your life," he murmured, eyes glistening with sincerity. A moment of warmth passed between them, a reminder of why they had fallen in love in the first place. Yet Elena could not forget the lies, the betrayal, the years of heartbreak. She was polite but remained distant, choosing to prioritize her own healing and the stability of her child over the risk of romantic entanglement. Desmond sensed her boundaries and did not press further. Elena's strategic investments in the PR firm and real estate continued to flourish. Having learned deeply about investment and wealth management, she branched out into technology startups, carefully selecting ethical ventures that aligned with her values. One such venture, a health and wellness app, skyrocketed in popularity, netting her a sizable return on her initial investment. Another startup in sustainable fashion garnered attention from larger corporations looking to acquire eco-friendly brands. With each new success, her personal wealth climbed steadily upward. It didn't take long for Elena's net worth to surpass the peak that Desmond had once enjoyed. She even appeared on a special feature in Bloomberg Businessweek titled "The Self-Made Women of Los Angeles." In the interview, she spoke candidly about resilience and the importance of building your own foundation rather than relying on someone else's. She kept her personal story vague, no direct references to Desmond's betrayal, but the undertones were clear. Hers was a story of triumph over adversity. Behind closed doors, she felt an odd sense of dissonance. She never sought revenge. Yet, life had orchestrated a scenario where she ended up wealthier, happier, and more at peace than the man who once held all the power in their relationship. It was as though karma itself had decided the score needed settling. Despite her financial success, Elena had to navigate the complexity of her rising public profile. At glamorous events where Patricia's firm managed celebrity engagements, Elena was often approached by journalists. They asked about her success story, sometimes prying into her personal life. She skillfully deflected, focusing on her professional achievements. However, the more visible Elena became, the more Desmond's associates, those who had once belittled her, were forced to confront her success. Some even tried to reconnect in hopes of forging business relationships with her. She politely declined most offers, remembering how quickly they had turned their backs on her during her darkest days. Still, Elena couldn't avoid all collisions with her past. Occasionally, she'd find herself at an exclusive industry event, face to face with someone who had known her as Desmond's wife. The look of surprise on their faces when they realized she was now a wealthy business mogul in her own right was often priceless. She'd smile cordially, offering no sign of the turbulent memories behind her cool composure. Each encounter was a reminder that she no longer needed their validation. Then came the phone call that would push the karma storyline to its climax. Desmond reached out one evening, voice tense. He had run into dire financial straits again, and his consultancy deals had dried up. "I'm about to lose my apartment, Elena," he said, desperation leaking through the phone line. "I don't know what else to do. I was hoping maybe you could loan me some money just until I get back on my feet." Elena's mind spun. The man who once had everything, who had humiliated her, who had all but forgotten her during her pregnancy, was now asking for a loan. It felt like a cosmic test, an opportunity to either enact vengeance or display empathy. She thought about Lucas. She considered the example she wanted to set for her son about compassion, but also about self-respect and boundaries. "If you need help, there are government assistance programs and support groups," she replied, keeping her tone measured. "I'm not comfortable lending you money, but I could refer you to some charities or organizations that help individuals in your position." Her voice trembled only slightly, betraying the emotional weight of the decision. Desmond tried to plead further. "I know I messed up, Elena. I'm desperate. I can't go to my friends. No one trusts me anymore. You're the only one I can turn to." Tears threatened to spill from Elena's eyes, but she remained resolute. "I'm sorry, Desmond. I genuinely hope you find the help you need, but I can't be that person for you anymore." Her final words left him silent, and eventually he hung up. In that moment, she felt both sorrow and empowerment. She wasn't responsible for fixing the man who had once broken her. Elena's decision weighed on her, but each time doubt crept in, she reminded herself of the countless nights she'd cried alone, pregnant and penniless. She recalled the heartbreak that nearly consumed her, the hustle she had embraced to build a life for herself and Lucas. Helping Desmond financially now wouldn't undo the past. It would only risk enabling him if he hadn't truly changed. Real change, she knew, demanded accountability. Lucas, now older, asked questions about his father more often. "Why doesn't Daddy live with us?" he would wonder. Elena explained that families come in many shapes and that his daddy loved him but had challenges to work through. She never spoke ill of Desmond. She simply focused on making Lucas feel secure and cherished. If and when Desmond found solid ground, he could be a father in a more consistent way. Until then, Elena's priority remained shielding Lucas from further emotional turmoil. With each passing day, Elena continued to grow her portfolio and expand her philanthropic efforts. She established a scholarship fund at the University of Pennsylvania, her alma mater, aiming to support single mothers looking to complete their education. She also began mentoring young women in the business world, sharing her knowledge of PR, branding, and real estate investment. "I know what it's like to feel alone and unsupported," she would tell them. "Don't let anyone tell you that you can't build a life of your own design." Her words resonated deeply, and many mentees credited Elena with helping them find their professional and personal footing. Lucas thrived too, attending a reputable private school where he excelled in reading and art. He had an inquisitive mind and a big heart, a testament perhaps to Elena's unwavering dedication. Occasionally, Desmond attended his school events, standing on the sidelines, clapping for his son. He was still financially unstable, but he tried to maintain a gentle presence in Lucas's life. Slowly, father and son began forging a relationship. Elena watched from a cautious distance, ensuring boundaries were respected. One day, Elena received an invitation to speak at a high-profile women's conference in San Francisco about resilience and entrepreneurship. She prepared diligently, crafting a powerful narrative that highlighted her professional journey and the lessons she had learned about self-worth. When the day came, she stepped onto the stage, wearing a simple yet elegant suit, her heart racing with adrenaline. After a standing ovation, she was greeted backstage by none other than Ariana Humphries, the editor-in-chief of a major business publication. Ariana was eager to interview her, and Elena graciously agreed, hoping to use the platform to inspire others. The interview was scheduled for the following week. It took place at a chic rooftop lounge, where Ariana asked pointed questions about Elena's motivations, her pivotal choices, and her perspective on love and betrayal. Eventually, Ariana asked the question everyone hinted at. Was there a moment you knew you had finally surpassed your ex-husband's success? Elena paused, a thoughtful smile on her lips. It wasn't about surpassing him, she explained. It was about finally realizing I could stand on my own, that I had the capacity to build something meaningful, something no one could take away from me. The wealth is a byproduct of perseverance and hard work. True success, for me, is the fact that I can go to bed each night knowing I'm providing a stable, loving environment for my son, free from toxicity or fear. That interview went viral, circulating on business websites and social media platforms. Women reached out to Elena, sharing their stories of heartbreak and hope. Many marveled at how Elena had once been overshadowed by her millionaire ex-husband, but now stood as a beacon of empowerment, richer not only in finances but in spirit. Desmond, too, saw the interview. He felt a pang of regret and deep admiration. He recognized that, in trying to keep her subdued and dependent, he had lost the greatest treasure he ever possessed, a partner who truly believed in him. Perhaps if he had valued her earlier, they would have grown together. But that train had long since left the station. Not long after, Elena received devastating news. Her father's health had taken a turn for the worse. She flew to upstate New York, Lucas in tow, to spend time with her dad. In his hospital room, the machines beeped softly, measuring the steady but fragile pulse of the man who had always been her hero. As she comforted him, she realized that life's fragility underscored the importance of gratitude. She had been so caught up in her ascent, she hadn't spent enough time with the people she loved most. During one of her father's lucid moments, he gripped her hand. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "You did it all on your own, but remember, it's okay to let people in when they've truly changed." Elena knew he was referencing Desmond, and she nodded, tears clouding her vision. She didn't know if letting Desmond in romantically was ever an option again, but she recognized that begrudging him forever served no positive end. She had learned her lessons, and so had he hopefully. In her father's hospital room, Eleanor's phone buzzed. She recognized Desmond's number, but hesitated to answer. Something told her this call was important. Stepping out into the hallway, she took the call. Desmond's voice was shaky and urgent. "Elena, I've got a lead on a job, a stable one with decent pay. But they want personal references. I know I have no right to ask, but would you consider writing a reference letter for me?" Elena's initial reaction was anger. How dare he call her in this vulnerable moment, asking for help yet again? But she thought of Lucas, and of the words her father had just spoken. People can change if they truly desire it. Perhaps supporting Desmond in finding honest work was the best thing for everyone, including Lucas. She sighed heavily. "Email me the details. If this job is legitimate, and you've been honest about your journey, I'll provide a factual account of the progress I've seen in you as a father. That's all I can promise." Desmond thanked her, his voice betraying relief and gratitude. She ended the call and went back to sit by her father's bedside, heart heavy yet surprisingly calm. As Elena watched her father sleep, she contemplated the concept of karma, the cosmic payback or balancing act. She had left pregnant and heartbroken, nearly destitute. Over the years, she rose to surpass the millionaire lifestyle she had once been enthralled by. Desmond, flush with arrogance and privilege, had spiraled into disgrace. Their trajectories were like a tale from ancient folklore, the humble, dedicated individual triumphs, while the arrogant ruler falls. Yet she also believed karma was more nuanced. It wasn't simply about revenge, rather it was life's lesson that one's choices have consequences. Desmond's choices led him to isolation and financial ruin. Elena's choices, rooted in perseverance and moral fortitude, led her to prosperity and peace. Now, as her father clung to life, she realized that real wealth went beyond money. It was in the love you cultivated, the resilience you forged, and the person you became when the world tried to break you. Elena's father eventually stabilized, giving her hope for more quality time with him. She returned to Los Angeles and honored her promise to Desmond. She wrote a brief but honest letter, stating that she had witnessed his efforts to maintain a relationship with his son and his commitment to sobriety. She didn't lie or exaggerate, but her words were enough to help him secure the job. A month later, Desmond called to thank her, his voice genuine. He had found a modest apartment and was committed to living within his means. "I'm taking it slow," he said. "I know I have to earn everyone's trust back." Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had no interest in reuniting romantically, but she felt at peace knowing he was trying to rebuild his life responsibly. More importantly, Lucas would have a father who was present and at least moderately stable. Now a prominent figure in the business community, Elena continued her work at the PR firm and expanded her investment ventures. She also released a book titled Standing Up, From Heartbroken to Hero of Your Own Life, which became a bestseller among those seeking personal and professional transformation. Invitations poured in from across the country to speak at conferences and seminars. In one of those speaking engagements, she closed with the words, "Every heartbreak, every betrayal can become the very soil in which you plant the seeds of your own triumph. We don't have to be defined by someone else's misdeeds. We can choose to rise above, to chart our own course, and to become richer in heart, mind, and, yes, even fortune richer than the ones who once wounded us. That is the power we each hold." And with that, Elena Roswell, once a naive bride in a fairy tale penthouse, stood taller than ever, a testament that the future belonged to those with courage, empathy, and determination to grow beyond their past. And so, we come to the end of Elena's remarkable journey from heartbreak and betrayal to building an empire and a loving home for her son, Lucas. She stood tall in the face of adversity, proving that no obstacle is too great when matched with resilience, intelligence, and courage. Her millionaire ex-husband, who once held her fate in his hands, now pales in comparison to the success and peace she's found on her own terms. Yet, Elena's story also reminds us that kindness can coexist with self-respect. It's possible to forgive without forgetting and to help others without undermining your own progress. If you found Elena's story inspiring or know someone who could use a dose of motivation, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Help spread the message that no matter how dark the road seems, it's never too late to forge your own path to a brighter future.